So I want to tell you that right here, right now, is a presence fully here. I call it God. It's always here. As linear time goes, we're born, become disillusioned, and usually join a religion of one sort or another. At which time there is even greater disillusionment, because religion didn't keep its promise. It didn't give us the hopes that we had hoped for. Always. It didn't. So many of us became disillusioned a second time and went on to say, hey, there's got to be more life than this. We might have sung as the lovely lady does, is this all there is? And then we discovered metaphysics. Of course, in the East, it works the other way. If you are living in India or China, you discover metaphysics first. If you discover anything at all. And then you study with a teacher, or two or three, and it begins to fail. And you ask again, is that all there is? And then, if you are from the East, you maybe discover religion. Now, if I may, I will draw a big S. There are two S's, thank you, in the river of life. One of them is religion. The other one is metaphysics. Some of us discover both. Some of us discover neither. I would like to make a point early on here that it's not important whether we discover either one of them. It makes no difference. There's a Chinese word called meo guanqi, which means it makes no difference. So, whether you have been very religious in your upbringing or not, or very metaphysical or not, meo guanqi. You're all right now. You are where you are supposed to be right now. And this now is very beautiful and very perfect, and it contains within itself all that's necessary. You will notice when you stop and think about it that now is always all right. I mean, so we're lost. We couldn't find this Lazy K Ranch because of the, roundabout ways to get here, and we're lost, and it doesn't seem that we're okay, but really, if you stop and examine that now is all right. When we are asked the question, where are you, we always answer here. And if someone says, what time is it, we say it's now. In linear time, in a space-time world, such as we are walking around in right now, we always say, I am here, and it is now. And we can't limit it to that here and now, but we try to. I think that in a greater dimension, on my dimensional world, it's easier to say here and now. We have to have it spread out over time, or we couldn't send it. It's so wonderful. That's the truth, isn't it? It has to be spread out over linear time. Now, all time is, and here we get a little bit into quantum mechanics. 10 years or so ago, science began investigating awareness itself. Now, heretofore, science had been investigating trees and rocks and people and things and how far it was from here to there and how far from there to here. And it was concerned with an external world that was out there, a measurable distance away from a me-sense who sat here and said, me and my awareness. 10 years ago, science said, let's us investigate awareness itself. Because in some of our calculations, we are finding out that time can go either way. And furthermore, we are finding out that time is relative, not absolute, and that time is measurable. Consequently, it can't be absolute. And so science began an investigation of the things that we have been looking for all our lives. Why are we here? And what is truth? And who am I? And what's it all about anyway? And what am I supposed to do? I want to do what I am supposed to do, if I can. But why do I have all these bills in the meantime? And why do I have these obstreperous children in the meantime? But science, with a very weird arithmetic, found out that we could take the Newtonian world and flip it upside down, and lo and behold, we had a quantum world. And they were both true under certain circumstances. There are objects, and there is time, and there is a place at which we get our mail. We have to eat and defecate and do all the unpleasant things that seem to go along with a linear world. But there are times when we dream, when we don't have to do those things. There are times when we are aware and don't have to report to a human body what we are aware of. So science began to back into what quantum mechanics or what physics has refused to admit. Not quantum mechanics, but physics across the board, generally. Still concerned with an experimenter who is separate and apart from his experiment. But there were those group of physicists, people, one of whom was to be here, but suffered or had the same experience I did and couldn't come. But I listened to that physicist talk to Krishnamurti. Are there those of you here who know who Krishnamurti is? Yes, lots of hands. Well, Krishnamurti was familiar with a subjective world, which is what we become aware of when we move from religion to metaphysics. Now, we don't leave religion when we move to metaphysics. Everybody, please understand that we don't leave our religious views when we discover our metaphysical views. And we don't leave our metaphysical views when we rediscover religion. And it awaits our rediscovery. Now, quantum mechanics began to back into God. Of course, it didn't call it God. Heavens were it. We call it God. It called it, I've forgotten all these words. Forgotten them. Well, there's a principle of everything. There's a TOE, theory of everything. There is, I forgot them all. So, thank you. Implicate order. Thank you. That's what I love about this one. I've forgotten everything. And I don't have to worry about it. Tell you. I used to have to remember names and give credit. Everybody understands that that goes away. And that isn't where it's at anyway. Well, this is what physics has begun to find out with quantum mechanics. With quantum mechanics, physicists now who've never been inside a church and wouldn't deign anything metaphysical acceptable, especially Western metaphysics, have begun to see that everything that we see with our EYE is holographic in nature. That is, right now, you see a holographic bill up here in front of the room. You'll look down and see holographic hands and holographic feet. You feel a holographic forehead, which means to a good physicist, well then, there must be something beyond this hologram. Something is being this tree, this room, this air that I breathe, these photons that I am looking at in my linear accelerator. Now, the secrets that there are secrets. Let me go on record. There are secrets. And we are not to profane the secrets. We were told by those who really knew what they were talking about. One of them was a Galilean who ricocheted up and down the hills of Galilee. I have a high regard for him. He was called a master. Another one was Lao Tzu, who wrote a book called the Tao Te Ching. Those masters all told us that we should be cautious with our secrets, because otherwise they would be profane. They also, those same people said, but there comes a time when that which is hidden will be revealed, and that which is covered will be uncovered. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel that that time has come. And this is that time. If you were a politician, you would find out that time has come. You can't get by with anything. If you were trying to hide a secret, you can't hide it anymore. The time has come when everything is moving at the speed of light. Even information. Soon we will have television sets with 500 channels, like we need them. But what we are really seeing is information carried to light. That is, quantum information. The only way we can see it tangibly would be to get 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 channels of information. Some of it right, some of it terribly wrong, most of it in between. And awareness is perceiving itself continually. So now we have, for the third time, I think, the secrets being discovered. First, it was forest dwellers, forest wanderers, many, many years, as linear time goes ago, really just a bunch ago. But they didn't have the analogies to make it plain. They didn't have the illustrations to make the point. So, in their frustration, but in their happiness, they climbed the mountains. They tried to get away from people. They said, "This is more than I can stand." And soon their ideas became organized into churches. Little group of men, usually wearing black robes, ran around saying, "I have the truth, and there is no truth except through me." And they interposed themselves as intermediaries between God, presence, which is right here. Presence is here, right now. And awareness is here. We had all these intermediaries, rabbis here, and priests there, and holy men somewhere else. Occasionally a holy woman. A lot of holy women until the Jews threw them all out. And still a lot of holy women in China, in India. So please don't any of you take offense at anything I say now. It's hard to say anything. But science has backed in. Oh, that was the first time the forest dweller. The second time, we can say 500 BC came the second birth of discovery, Lao Tzu. Through 2,000 years ago, John the Baptist, Jesus, the Essenes, I think. Again, all of the analogies, illustrations couldn't be made because we didn't have them yet. Now, 2,000 years later, science, of all people, scientists are backing into the present. Now, sometime shortly, before you guys and gals edit this tape, science will have to make a choice that will require an awful lot of swallowing pride. Science is going to have to admit that there is indeed a present. Right here, right now, taking care of this awareness, tending this awareness. Or there isn't. Now, science will make that choice, it looks like to me. That's why I wanted Dr. Bohm to be here, and maybe even Hawking's. Yeah. These people are very close to admitting that there is a present. There must be. It isn't an accident. Okay, why then does this presence make itself so hard to see? And why is this presence, it appears just as evil as it is good? Since we are all aboard the train, will everybody repeat after me the word entrainment? Entrainment. Thank you. What is the... I want to say that science, this new God that we put a white coat on and call doctor, doesn't really know what entrainment is. Why pendulums begin to swing together. Why a group of people can get together and think about the same thing at the same time, and something synergistic happens. Science is discovering God. In the next 2 years, science will either say, yes, there is something being this awareness. Something is being this awareness. Or they will deny it. If that should be the case, it will be the third denial. Because this truth has been, while it has always been here, closer than breathing, closer than fingers and toes, it is denied. For one reason or another, because somebody wants to make a living with it, or because somebody wants to have a healing because of it, or because somebody wants to make a human life, a human experience happy with it. For one reason or another, it is shunted aside, made into a system of one kind or another, and the original idea is lost sight of. At one time, Buddha said, we have a great secret here. What shall we do with it? And some of his disciples said, let's just take this secret and we'll hide it in the deepest part of the ocean. And that was before the Mariana Trench had been discovered and science hadn't found it yet. And And Buddha said, no, it will be found there. And somebody else said, let's take this simple truth and let's take it and we will stick it out there in the Pleiades. The Pleiades, that little grouping of stars that if you look straight up at night, you will see. And Buddha said, no, if we hide it there, it'll be found and profaned. And so the disciple said to Lord Buddha, what should we do with it? And his reply, I know that everyone in here has heard it before, but I would like to say it again. We will hide it in simplicity, clothe it with simplicity, and we will hide it in the child heart of us. And there, no one will stop to look for it. So, I want to talk, I want to begin at the beginning, which is awareness. Let's try it again. We begin at the beginning, which is awareness. You awakened this morning. What did you do? You looked around the room. Awareness was aware. We didn't like necessarily where it said we were or what it said we were going to do, but we began with awareness. So awareness is here, right now. It's fully here. It always has been here. It will always be here. It's with us wherever we go. Closer than breathing, closer than the fingers and toes. Awareness is awareing. So, we have gotten aboard the train, entrainment. Our pendulums are swinging together, and if you are not accustomed, if you don't have something that you consider a pendulum, use some other part of the anatomy, but we are together, entrainment, our pendulum swinging together, and awareness is fully here. Now, none of us have ever been outside this awareness that is wearing right here, right now. You've never been out there to say, hey, there's a tree out there. There is Bill out there, a measurable distance apart from me here. We have grown up in a space-time continuum believing that awareness was to report something to us. To us. Well, who is this big I that says us? Who is this us to whom awareness reports? Now, the masters through the years have discovered that they've always been awareness. This awareness. This is the only one I know anything about. And they have realized that dominion resided with awareness. Not out there with the husband or the wife or the light or the anything else that appeared to be threatening awareness here. How many here believe in miracles? Thank you. I wish all of you would raise your hand. because miracles happen. And I am going to talk about that, mostly because I never have before. I've been afraid to. But miracles happen. And I don't mean just little bitty ones. I mean great big ones. I asked all of you to put down, if you could have most, if you could have anything you want in this world, would you please write it on a piece of paper? And I would look at it. And all of you did. There were lots of comedians, which I'm grateful for. But by and large, everybody asked for the same thing. And I want to tell you, with all the power that I can muster, and with all the seriousness that I can muster, that miracles happen. Now, it was really cool as a little kid to grow up and say that miracles were a lot of superstitious follow-all, and that all a miracle ever seemed to be was something not yet explained or understood by science. But that science, when science understood something, it would no longer be a miracle. It would just be science operating. For instance, there are cameras taking pictures here. What excites the film inside the camera is a little electron. Do you know that our prestigious men in white coats can't tell us what a photon is, which is an electron, photon. We can do all kinds of things with photons. I'm using the right word, photon. We can do all kinds of things with them. We can measure them. We can tell you how fast they're moving. We can measure distances between them. We can squeeze the electron down into a little device that is only one electron wide, one photon wide. And it only lets out one photon at a time. And yet we don't know, we still don't know what a photon is. If all of you people were scientists, and the question were asked, tell me what is a photon, there would be as many answers to that question as if I were to ask you, what is God? Or what is truth? Or what is love? What is life? In fact, you would come much closer to answering the question, what is life, than you could answering what is a photon. Well, did you know that everything in this world that comes to us via photon? Did you know that everything we know or think we know, everything that we articulate or try to, or wear, or hope to wear, or to be, or hope to be, comes to us by the way of the photon? And did you know that when you lie down at night on the ground and you look up at the night sky, that some of those photons have been traveling for 15 billion years? Did you know that science still, despite its vast accumulation of wisdom in so many areas, still can't tell us what a photon is and why it is that photon has traveled for 15 billion years and nothing has changed or nothing has happened to the photon until such time as it strikes the retina of your eye. Your eye, not mine, yours. Did you know that the perspective from which you watch a photon determines what you see? Science is making all of these discoveries, and yet metaphysics and religion have been telling us this for thousands of years. But science now is backing into it. Did you know that if this were a linear accelerator, a cloud chamber right here, and we are watching what is soon to transpire, the ultimate cloud chamber is going to be made out in Texas. But anyway, if this were a linear accelerator, where you sit looking at it determines on what we see in it. It is possible for me right here to look in the cloud chamber, and you right there look in the cloud chamber, and I see silver and you see gold. I am, of course, being too literal. But science has discovered that the awareness of the perceiver alters what is perceived. Science, the last place on earth you would expect to hear anything metaphysical coming from. Now, that much said, I was lying down on the couch and I was listening to Harry Belafonte. Mr. Harry Belafonte, whom I love very much because he sings so clearly, I can understand him. And with his permission and the permission of those who wrote the song, I would like to read the last thing I wrote when I could still write. These are the songs of that, these are the words of that song. I peeped in to say goodnight, and I heard my child in prayer. I peeped in to say goodnight, and I heard my child in prayer. A little girl is kneeling down beside the bed, and she's saying her night's prayer. But it was ending, was coming to an end, and so he only heard, he peeped in the room, and all he heard the little girl say, and for me, some scarlet ribbons for my hair. All the stores were closed and shuttered, and all the streets were dark and bare. In our whole town, no scarlet ribbons, not one ribbon for her hair. When we were children, we asked for all kinds of things. I asked for a bicycle. When my dad and Mother could no more afford a bicycle than they could rise and fall. And yet when I went downstairs on Christmas morning, there was a bicycle day. Through the night, my heart was aching. This man steps in, he hears this little girl, and the last thing she said was, "And for me, some scarlet ribbons." Scarlet ribbons for my hair. And he couldn't find the scarlet ribbon anywhere. And the stores were closed, and the town was all shuttered up. And his heart was aching. All through the night, his heart was aching because there wasn't a single scarlet ribbon to go in and give to that little girl. Just before the dawn was breaking, I peeped in. And on her bed, in gay profusion lying there, lovely ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair. If I live to be 100, I will never know from where came those lovely scarlet ribbons. Scarlet ribbons for her hair. I'm here to tell you where they came from and why and how, so that you can do it too. It's possible. It's possible. If I live to be 100, I will never know from where those scarlet ribbons came from. They were laying there in gay profusion. I tell you, we can ask for anything. 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 Believing. We can say to the mountain, be hurled into the ocean, and it will be hurled into the ocean. The key word there is believing. How do we believe? How do we believe like that? I would like to have whatever I can ask for. Now, let's take that Galilean, the man that was the last master that is written about. For 3 years he had been trying to tell his disciples about becoming childlike, about becoming as children again, about being childlike, not childish, childlike. For 3 years he had gone over and over the same statement. Suffer the little children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. I tell you that lest ye become like children, you can in no wise enter the kingdom of heaven. Then, just before the tail end of that beautiful ministry, these men, 12 of them, had heard this so many times that finally in desperation they came and they said, tell us, what do you mean? And I will paraphrase again liberally because I can't remember it exactly anymore. But one of the disciples thought, you've told us this so many times, for Christ's sake, what do you mean? What do you mean? Must I re-enter my mother's womb? Is that what you're talking about? And he must have done like so many of us. I can't make it clear. There aren't words for it. There are no analogy or illustration. But you remember that at the tail end, these same men were walking along with him, and he is on his way, I guess, to Jerusalem, and he passes a fig tree, and there's no fruit on the fig tree, and the disciples are astounded because the fig tree withered. And Jesus said, you think this is big stuff? You think this is a miracle? I tell you that anything you ask, believe it. Yeah. And then shortly, the very same man that had made that great remark is askew with a sword or a nail in both hands and in both feet, a hole in his side, and he's saying, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? So, you see, to answer the query about suffering, I don't think we ever stop our suffering. Until we know what its purpose is. The lady that bent down and said, does she know what love is? And I said, no, I don't. She said, you doesn't have to. Well, I don't know what God, the present, isness, the big circle, isness. I don't know what isness is. But I know it is. I know it is. And that's as far as we have to get. Churches, to the contrary, believe in the Bible, to the contrary, believe in ministers and priests and rabbis and metaphysicians who rant and rave, to the contrary. All we have to do is believe that God is. That God is. Now, does anybody question that arithmetic is? We can't see it, but we know that if we start doing our multiplication tables, arithmetic makes itself apparent. We know if we start writing that the alphabet makes itself apparent. Alphabet is here. Arithmetic is here. How about music? Nobody is playing the Fifth Symphony right at this moment. But it is in our hearts. It is. We know that music is. We know it is present. Now, what is the one thing about which none of us quarrel? We know that awareness is. It was my happy privilege for a number of years to be on the pathway of all the atheists that would travel between Arizona and Florida. They would go to Florida in the wintertime where it was nice and warm, and then would spend the summer in Arizona, headquarters for atheists at that time. And they would all stop by the little bakery I had to argue with me about the existence of God. But as soon as we could define terms and decide what we mean when we say God, truth, is it, life, truth, as soon as we define terms, there wasn't any argument. From all these wonderful people who consider themselves atheists, they would always leave and say, well, I'm not as much an atheist as I thought, so now at least you have made me an agnostic. The one thing that we can be certain of is here is awareness. Awareness seems at this moment to be awareing. It's watching Bill wipe off his forehead, or it is feeling the press of a chair underneath the butt, or shoes are too tight, or something, but awareness is awareing. Now, what do we have to do in this human linear experience? And not only do people like me talk about it, but scientists are beginning to talk about it. Thank you, scientists, because we've been saying for so many years that there is something beyond this awareness to whom we report, to whom awareness reports. Now, we've been saying it reports to a me, my body named George. Awareness reports to my mind. Awareness is the activity of my mind. Never was awareness the activity of my mind, but we believed that so for a time, and during the time we believed it so, it was true. We have said from the time we first heard Santa Claus wasn't real. Well, I can be fooled. I can be duped. Who is this I who can be fooled, who can be duped? Who is this me who says my awareness? That me who says my awareness is already dead. It doesn't exist. It never did. But it was perfectly all right for us to believe it did because we were supposed to. How would we know that life isn't in matter? If for a very, very long period of our lives, it was important to us that we believed that life was in matter and could go out of matter. And so, for a long period of our lives, we believed that awareness was reporting to my mind, my me. You all remember that there was a very lovely lady once who said, she got angry. She got angry because she kept floating away, and people had to pull her back down. Her name was Catherine of Siena. She made the remark, my me is God, nor do I recognize any other me but my God himself. Okay, let's come back down to basics.